It takes a lot to run the church. I think there's a lot of people on staff that are a really great resource that get paychecks.
There's an excellent staff. There has to be excellent technology. There has to be engaging, age-appropriate curriculum.
Also just the building itself with the heating and the cooling and the maintenance is also a big expense.
We know what our house payment is and what our utilities are. Well, I can only imagine what that multiplied is for Bethlehem. So we know it takes a lot of money just to keep the doors open, let alone all of the outreach services that they're providing.
They're big operations. We serve a lot of families, a lot of kids, and it takes a lot of money to be able to do that.
Steve Knutson was our pastor in the early 80s. We became friends right away, and we would have coffee every Friday and talk about the week and what's going on at Bethlehem. And I noticed that particular Friday morning he was not talking too good, and I said, "What's on your mind?" He said, "We got $27 in our checking account at Bethlehem Lutheran Church." When Knutson said that we were out of money, we were the third largest church in South Dakota at that time, and we got $27. This was Friday. I said, on Monday, come over to my house. I'm going to call every past president that's in Aberdeen, and we're going to get in a huddle and we're going to figure out a plan. And so the Monday came, and we had about 15 past presidents in my living room. We came up with the thought that we're going to tithe. We're going to ask everybody to tithe at Bethlehem. And before we were done, we had 222 families that were tithing. We have never quit tithing since. It's a secure feeling knowing that you're doing what is biblical.
When talking about faith and finances, two words often come up: stewardship and tithing. Stewardship is based in the idea that God has entrusted us with resources. Our challenge is to faithfully manage those resources, to be stewards. We don't own it, but God has entrusted it to us to use for the good of others, for the good of God's work in the world, for the good of all of creation. And so to be a steward is to be a caretaker. Tithe, the word, comes from the word tenth. And in the Bible, the teaching was to give 1/10 of what the harvest was to God. And so classically, when people talk about tithing, they're talking about setting aside 10% of their income to give away for the good of others, to give away for God's work.
When you give, even with $5, you'd be amazed at how that could transform the world around you. You are telling kids that they're important. You're telling the elderly of our community that they're not forgotten, that they're remembered, that they're cared for, that they're prayed for. When you give to Bethlehem, you're feeding 400 people a week on Wednesday nights. You're telling our partners in Nicaragua and Cameroon that they're not alone in their struggles, that there are people praying and encouraging them. And when you give to Bethlehem, you're saying that Aberdeen and our surrounding communities are important and that they have a future.
This community of faith operates because of all of us together as the body of Christ. The smallest gift to the largest gift, they are important. They're all welcomed and they all are meaningful and give towards what we're able to do here.
When you give to Bethlehem, you know that your money is going to a good cause, that you're helping people in whatever way you can. Being on the financial resources team has allowed me to see a lot of the behind the scenes at church, and we are very diligent in our spending, sticking to the budgets, everything is accounted for. Having a business background, it was really nice to kind of come in and see how all the operations work and how all the money is used appropriately.
Believing in the church itself, believing what it's trying to do, believing in the leadership, the mission. I feel like when we give our money, it's for a greater cause, and you can actually see it. You can see the results.
Many times when people think about tithing and they look at their resources, they think, there's no way that I could tithe. I could never give that much. I don't have that much left. And actually that line of thinking is kind of backwards. The faith is taught for generations that we ought to give first as an expression of our love for God and love for neighbor.
And I don't think you have to wait until you feel like you have enough. You don't have to wait until you feel like I'm settled and everything else is taken care of first before I can give. Because if you look around, the congregation still has needs.
I truly feel that when we are intentional about what our commitment is to the body of Christ, to our community of faith, when we are intentional about what our financial commitment is to the church, the other things have a way of falling into place. It's a matter of trust.
It doesn't really matter, the size of the gift. I think it's just intentional giving is what counts, showing that you're committed to the church, you're committed to the ministry, that you do want to help change lives.
People often say that one's giving can be a thermometer for their faith, for their spiritual life. If their spiritual life, their faith is warm and radiant, then their giving will be generous and will reflect that temperature of their faith. But also, giving can be a thermostat for one's faith. Think about this time of year when there's a chill in the air and you go and you turn up the thermostat to warm up the house. You set the thermostat to where you want the temperature to be. And so it is with giving. If you set your giving to be warmer, to be more generous, then your faith will grow, will adjust to warm up to that level.
I don't carry my checkbook around anymore. It's just not something I do. There's no place to necessarily give with a credit card here at church, so we've simply chosen as a family to do Simply Giving.
Simply Giving is an electronic way that you can do your giving. It will come directly out of your bank account so that once you set it up, it automatically happens. Just like you would any other payment that you take care of each month. You don't have to do anything else to ensure that it's happening.
It's just an opportunity that I don't have to remember anything. I just put it on autopilot and the gift is given and I don't have to worry about it again.
I would really encourage people to consider the Simply Giving. And I know there are people who are concerned, I don't want to be locked in. What if my circumstances change? You can do it one payment at a time. If you don't have a computer, they will help you in the office to do it. But it really takes all of the work and all of the stress out of budgeting. For our house, if Alan said, oh, by the way, I'm not going to work this month, you're gonna have to deal with this on your own paycheck. It would be very, very difficult. I think the church family has gotta be just the same. They need a consistent, reliable source of income to make sure that we serve all of the missions that we as a congregation have deemed important.
It's really no different than each month when we look down the list and we say, I've got my cell phone, or I've got my car insurance, or my car payment. These are all important things, and we're intentional about making sure that they're budgeted in. Your faith community needs that same kind of commitment. That's why pledges are so important, and your commitment is so important.
When you buy a house or if you buy a car, you're committing to those payments each and every day, and people don't think twice about that.
I think every single person wants to give. One of the biggest challenges, I think, is just making that commitment and then being disciplined enough to get it done. Yeah, following through.
This is home. This is your family. There isn't anything more important than keeping going what we got going here. If we need money in the church, we need a little extra money, then somehow or another somebody always steps up. And sometimes it has to be you and me.
So ultimately, I just want to invite you to pledge, invite you to be intentional about your commitment as well. Join me and my family as we are intentional about not only participating in the ministry, but funding this ministry as well.
At this point in Bethlehem's life, there's a lot of energy focusing on expanding the building. But we as the staff and leaders are really focused on building the ministry. And so this fall, we're inviting everyone to invest in our mission together for 2016.
2016 is going to be an exciting year here at Bethlehem. We're under construction outside, but we're also under construction within us. God is doing a new thing in us. And I want to invite you to join my family, Amber and Veda, in considering a consistent financial gift that could change your life as well as continue to support the mission of this congregation as we go forward.
I invite you to join me and my family to commit to supporting God's work. Maybe you can commit to tithe to 10%, or maybe for this year, you commit to 2 or 3%. So this fall, I invite you to look at the thermometer of your giving, to assess for yourself the warmth of your faith. And then I would invite you and encourage you to prayerfully set your thermostat so that your faith can grow.